Love you. Like a pretzel. There we go. Have to reset. That's all Windows. Blurg Windows. I gave them to you, didn't I? I don't have them on me. Okay, love you. Yes, sweet cute. All right, friends, we're gonna get right into reading. You get your snack? All right. Let me know when you're ready to start reading. Oh, you eat your snack? That's what you need to stop
Might
in the
need
next
that.
area.
Got one. boy. Tasty.
Here to try your...
I have to go.
As you like.
You'll do. They're scanning for me. I thought they'd go on forever.
Because I did blow myself up. Because I did blow myself up. I'll use my traps. Nope, I'll just get better. Nope. We got to go through steps, dude. I was already...
around. done.
The Book of Daniel. The story set right after Babylon's first attack on Jerusalem, and they had plundered the city and its temple and taken a wave of Israelites into exile. Among them were 4 men from the royal family of David: Daniel, who's later named Belteshazzar, and his 3 friends who you probably know by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This book tells of their struggles to maintain hope in the land of their conquerors. The book's design seems pretty simple at first. Chapters 1 through 6 contain stories about Daniel and his friends in Babylon, while chapters 7 through 12 contain the visions of Daniel about the future. But this 2-part shape is made even more interesting by another design feature, and that's the book's language. It begins in Hebrew, the language of the Israelites, but chapters 2 through 7 are written in Aramaic, a cousin language to Hebrew spoken widely among the ancient empires. But then in chapters 8 through 12, it goes back to Hebrew. This design shows how chapters 2 through 7 are a coherent section, but it also highlights the importance of chapters 2 and 7 for understanding the later chapters of the book. Let's just dive in. Chapter 1 introduces the basic tension of the first half of the book. Daniel and his friends, they're really wise and capable, and they're recruited to serve in the royal palace of Babylon. But they're pressured to give up their Jewish identity by living and eating like Babylonians and violating the Jewish food laws found in the Torah. So they refuse, and they choose faithfulness to the Torah, and it puts them in danger. But God delivers them, and they end up being elevated by the king of Babylon. After this begins the Aramaic section, which you'll see has this really cool symmetrical design. So first, the king of Babylon has a dream that, it turns out, only Daniel is able to interpret. It's about a huge statue made of 4 types of metal, and it symbolizes a sequence of kingdoms, and the head is Babylon. But then a huge rock comes flying in, and it shatters the statue, and it becomes this huge mountain. Now, this dream is the first of many symbolic visions in the book, and this one introduces the basic storyline of them all. Daniel says that the statue represents a train of human kingdoms following from Babylon, and they will all fill God's world with violence. But one day, God's kingdom will come and will confront and humble the arrogant kingdoms of this world and fill the world with the healing justice of God's reign and rule. After this, chapter 3 tells the famous story of Daniel's 3 friends who refuse to bow down and worship a huge idol statue, which, like the statue in chapter 2, represents the king and his imperial power. And so the friends are persecuted. They're thrown into a fiery furnace, but God delivers them from death, and they're exalted by the king, who now acknowledges their God as the true one. After this come a pair of stories about 2 Babylonian kings, the father, Nebuchadnezzar, and then his son, Belshazzar. They're both filled with pride because of their imperial power, and so, like in chapter 2, God warns them both through dreams and then visions, which, also like chapter 2, only Daniel can interpret. He says that both kings are to humble themselves before God, and both kings arrogantly resist. So Nebuchadnezzar is stricken with madness. He becomes like a beast in the field. But then he humbles himself before God, and his humanity returns to him. He's restored as king. This is in contrast with his son, Belshazzar, who doesn't humble himself before God, and he's assassinated that very night. Now, these 2 stories draw this imagery from Genesis chapters 1 and 2 and Psalm 8, where humans are depicted as the royal image of God. He's given them authority to rule over the beasts of the field and the birds of the air on behalf of God, who is the world's true king. But when human kingdoms forget that, when they rebel and make themselves and their power into a god, they become less than human, like violent beasts who will face God's justice. Which brings us to chapter 6, the pair of chapter 3. And this time it's Daniel who's being persecuted because he refuses to pray and worship the king as a god. And so, like the friends, he's sentenced to death and he's thrown into a lion's den. But God delivers him from the beasts, and like the friends, the king exalts Daniel and praises his God, which brings us to chapter 7. It's the pair of chapter 2 and the center of the book where all its themes come together. It's another dream, but it's Daniel's this time. And ironically, he can't understand the dream until an angelic messenger explains it to him. He sees a series of 4 beasts, one like a lion, then like a bear, then one like a winged leopard, each of these symbolizing an arrogant kingdom. And last of all is a super beast, identified as a really evil empire, and it has lots of horns, a common symbol for kings in the Old Testament, and there's one specific horn who is an image of an arrogant king who exalts himself above God and persecutes God's people. Now they are symbolized by a figure called the Son of Man, who's an image for both God's covenant people, but also for their king from the line of David. But then all of a sudden, God, who's called the Ancient of Days, comes and he sets up his throne. He destroys the super beast and he exalts the Son of Man on the clouds, where he comes up to sit at God's right hand and share in God's rule over the nations. We can look back now and see how all of these stories in the first half fit together. The three stories of faithfulness despite persecution, these are meant to offer hope to God's suffering people among the nations. But they suffer because human kingdoms have rebelled against God and have become beasts. And so these visions encourage patience, that God's people are to wait for him to bring his kingdom and rule over our world and vindicate his suffering people. But it raises the question about when God is going to do that, and that's what these final three visions set out to explore. In chapter 8, Daniel has another vision about the final two beasts of chapter 7, but this time they're symbolized by a ram, who we're told is the image of the empire of the Medes and Persians, and then by a goat, who's an image of ancient Greece. And out of the goat come a whole bunch of horns, one of which symbolizes the evil king from chapter 7. And we're told more about him, that he will attack Jerusalem and exalt himself above God and defile the temple with idols. However, in the end, he will be destroyed by God, who will exalt his people and his kingdom. Now, by chapter 9, Daniel is very puzzled, especially as to when all of this is going to take place. And so he consults the scroll of the prophet Jeremiah, where God said that Israel's exile would only last 70 years. So for Daniel, the 70 years is almost up. And so he asks God to fulfill his promise soon. But an angel comes and informs him that Israel's sin and rebellion has continued. And so their time of exile and oppression will continue on 7 times longer than Jeremiah envisioned. Daniel is deeply disturbed by this, and he has one final vision. We're shown the same sequence of kingdoms. It's Persia, then Greece, and Alexander the Great, followed by lesser kings, all leading up to this final king of the north, who will invade Jerusalem, set up idols in the temple, and exalt himself above God. But then, all of a sudden, this king comes to ruin. Now, there's been endless debate about what all of these visions refer to. Many see a clear connection to the exploits of the Syrian king Antiochus in the 160s BC. He killed many faithful Jews in Jerusalem and set up idols in the temple. Others think it points forward to the Roman Empire's role in the execution of Jesus and the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple in AD 70. And still others think it will be fulfilled in future events that have yet to happen when Jesus will return. Now the problem is that the symbols and the numbers, they don't quite match any of these views perfectly. But it opens up the possibility that in a sense they are all right. The book of Daniel has been designed to offer hope to all future generations of God's people. It did so in the days of Antiochus's empire, and it has ever since. This is why Jesus could use imagery from Daniel to describe and confront the oppressive leaders he confronted in Jerusalem. This is why John, the visionary who wrote the Revelation, could adapt Daniel's visions and apply them to Rome of his day and also all future oppressive empires. And so the point of Daniel is that all generations of readers can find here a pattern and a promise. It's a pattern that human beings and their kingdoms become violent beasts when they glorify their own power, when they redefine right and wrong, and don't acknowledge God as their true king. But Daniel also holds out a promise that one day God will confront the beast. He will rescue his world and his people by bringing his kingdom over all nations. And so for every generation, this book speaks a message of hope that should motivate faithfulness. And that's what the book of Daniel is all about.
All right, take away, my friend. Okay, so let's just recap then. So this is when Jerusalem got destroyed, right? And who destroyed Jerusalem? Who destroyed the southern kingdom? Babylon, right? We're finishing up the recap. After this, we got to read, okay? All right, and so they get captive, And then you get 4 people: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. And so, and really, like, yes, like, it's their story, but you're seeing how Yahweh is showing that doing right. And it's humans' pride that keep causing all these issues. They become like beast. But we look forward today that Yahweh will confront the beast and rescue his world. And we are in the practice of staying faithful. And we see this even with Christianity around the world, where they're persecuted by beastful nations. All right, friend. All right, let's start reading. All right. King Jesus, you're amazing. We thank you so much that you have inaugurated your kingdom and it is embarking on the world. And how evil beastful nations, they try to do the worst against you and your people. And just cause havoc. Pro-war is against you. And we look forward to the day when you make all wrongs right. All crooked paths straight. A day when there's no more war. Where you will wipe every tear from the eye. We look forward to you, King Jesus. Thank you for showing us how to rule is by giving ourselves for the other. May we embody this rule. May we embody just giving our lives for the other. Amen. All you can do is pray. Joel chapter 1, verse 1 to 20. Yahweh's message that came to Joel, son of Pethuel. Listen to this, elders. Give ear, all you inhabitants of the country. Has this happened in your days? Or in your ancestors' days? Tell your children about it, and your children their children, and their children the next generation. What was left from the cutter, the locust has eaten. What was left from the locust, the grub has eaten. What was left from the grub, the hopper has eaten. Wake up, you drunks, and weep. Wail, all you wine drinkers. Because of new wine, because it has been cut off from your lips. Because a nation has come up against my country, strong and without number. Its teeth are a lion's teeth, and has a lioness fangs. It has made my vine into a waste, my fig tree into a stump. It has stripped its bark and thrown it away. Its branches have turned white. Wail like a girl girded in sackcloth because of her husband in his youth. Offering and libations have been cut off from Yahweh's house. The priest, Yahweh's ministers, have mourned. The countryside has been destroyed. The ground has mourned because the grain has been destroyed. The new wine has withered. The fresh oil languishes. Farmers, be ashamed. Vine dressers wail over wheat, over barley, because the harvest of the countryside has perished. The vine has withered. The fig tree languishes. Pomegranate, palm, and apricot. All the countryside's trees wither, because joy has withered from humankind. Gird yourselves and lament. Lamentations, lament. Priest, wail, ministers of the altar. Come, spend the night in sackcloth. Ministers of my God, because offering and libations have been cut off from Yahweh's house. Declare a sacred fast. Summon an assembly. Gather the elders, all the inhabitants of the country, to the house of Yahweh your God, and cry out to Yahweh. Ah, for the day, because Yahweh's day is near. It comes like destruction from the destroyer. Isn't food cut off in front of our eyes? Joy and celebration. All right. Isn't food cut off in front of our eyes? Joy and celebration from Yahweh's house. Seeds have shriveled under their clods. Storehouses are desolate. Granaries are in ruins. Because grain has withered. How the animals have grown. The herds of cattle have been befuddled, because they have no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep suffer punishment. To you, Yahweh, I call, because fire has consumed the pasture in the wilderness. Flame has burned all the trees in the countryside. Even the animals of the wild pant for you, because the streams of water dry up. Fire has consumed the pasture in the wilderness. So he's a prophet, so he definitely could say that there's been compromise. And here, it's like their compromises have caught up to them, and the land is ruined. So it's like, mourn, wail, look to Yahweh, declare a sacred fast. Like, we are here because of compromise. So let's put ourselves at the feet of the one who can make the wrong right. Anu Musa is a Darfari from Sudan who lived in a refugee camp in Chad. After nearly 10 years there, he decided he had to take his family back to Sudan. I don't know what happened to him subsequently. With the aid of equipment taken to the refugees from the United States, before he left, he posted pictures of locusts around the camp. He commented that while the locust is a most devastating insect for crops, the refugee children have a different view of it. It's a source of free protein. His pictures showed hundreds of boys hunting for locusts. They hoped that the flock would remain there for a few days. The attitude to locusts in the Middle East, as I write, is different. Over the past 3 months, enough of them have invaded Egypt from the south to consume 10 million people's food supply for a year, and the insects have begun crossing into southern Israel. The Judahites in Joel's day have everything to fear from locusts, and they experience the kind of invasion they dread. It's as if Yahweh's day, the day of the Lord, is arriving, the day that brings Yahweh's judgment, ultimate judgment on the people. So whenever we hear day of the Lord, and he uses these big events, think of they use these big wordings to show that things are different, things suck, and it could be like locusts. The comparison with the girl who is mourning presupposes that she's a bride whose husband dies when they're about to get married. Sometimes things happen and people are helpless before them. A locust plague is such an experience. It's like a slow tsunami. It seems that people are avoiding facing the fact about what has happened. You can hardly blame them. Better just get drunk. Joel urges them to come before God to cry out to God. A term that used is the one used for the Israelites crying out under their oppression in Egypt. That's how bad the situation is. Priest. Oh, remember the word that means cry out? So like when Abel's blood cried out from the ground. Yeah, I forget the Hebrew word, but it means like cry out. So this, I'm sorry. So it's like the Israelites. So when they cried out, the same word for cry out means they cry out when they're under the oppression of Egypt. So now he's calling them to cry out, like as if the day in Egypt. The term that used is the one used for the Israelites crying out under their oppression in Egypt. That's how bad the situation is. Priests, elders, people should all assemble in a kind of protest. The bigger the protest, the more likely it is to be heard. The day comes like a destruction from the destroyer. The Hebrew word for destroyer is Shaddai. That name is commonly translated Almighty, but similar to a word for destruction, and this passage indicates that Israelites could know a similarity. It's a frightening fact that Yahweh can act as destroyer, yet the potential comfort is that the one who destroys can also be the one who has mercy. If Yahweh were not in charge, it might be hopeless to ask for restoration relief, but Yahweh is in charge and can therefore act in that way. All you can do is pray, but that's a huge all. The locust epidemic means there won't be the wherewithal to offer Yahweh proper worship. Yahweh knew that worship needed to be outward, concrete material, not merely inward and verbal. Paradoxically, that lack makes it all the more important to come to the temple to protest and pray. All right, friend, we talked enough, so we can start. Hey, Aiden.
Hello.
Huh.
How's it?
Should be able to hear you now. Yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah, there we go. My defaults are bugged as usual.
Oh,
How long you been?
well, I was here for like a couple minutes.
Okay. Whew.
I just fired up Path of Exile 2.
Oh, nice. Well, I can't do any PoE2 right now because I haven't tested out for these hours. But-
So it is pretty gory, I'll tell you that.
yeah,
if that's what
I
one of the things you're worried
imagine
about.
that. But if you want to do some Marvel Rivals,